Welcome to As the Story Grows. I'm Brian Patton. Today we welcome Creeper frontman Will Gould to the podcast. Creeper's new album, Sanguivore, is out this Friday on Spinefarm Records. Will talks about being a part of the punk scene, how books influenced Creeper's name, figuring out how to be a band remotely, creating album concepts within the framework of streaming music, and more. Sanguivore is an absolute wild ride of an album, and I highly recommend you experience it on Friday when the album drops. Make sure you never miss an episode of As the Story Grows by subscribing wherever you get your podcasts. I believe we're everywhere, so hit that subscribe button. Patreon members get early access to every episode of the podcast. $1 a month gets you early access. $3 a month gets you the After Dark podcast and mosh mixes. You can come hang out over on Discord to chat about music, TV, movies, music news, and more. And subscribe to the mailing list for a look behind the curtain of the podcast. Links are in the show notes. Enjoy today's chat with Will Gould from Creeper. The new record all day. It's a journey. Like, I love it. Like, it is.
It is.
like even just listening to the singles don't tell you what the record is like at all. Like, yeah, glimpses, but like you have to experience the whole thing.
No, it's true. You know, it was kind of built like that by design. You know, it's like it kind of kept you guessing all the way through. But yeah, I'm glad you listened to it, man. Thank you very much for checking it out. I've just seen my face here for the first time in ages and realized that my hair's kind of crazy. So I'm sorry about that. It's been a very sweaty day here, you know? I don't know what it's like there, but...
It's hot as fuck. That's what it's like. My dog keeps wanting to go outside, and I'm like, no, we cannot. It's miserable out there.
Oh, man. It's just muggy here, you know, like where it's like sweaty. It's just fucking gross. So I've set this fan up, but... Hope it doesn't make the audio really bad. I'm not sure, but
it's all good. It's all good. You don't need to sweat for the interview. Can handle a fan in the background.
Okay, cool.
Let's jump back in time. You're from Southampton?
Yes.
Yeah. What was
from the coast, but I live in Manchester now. So,
okay.
Yeah, this is the north of the country now, but originally from the very coast.
Nice. What was growing up like?
It was grey, very grey, as you can imagine in like a town like that. Like it's like a coastal town. So my parents are from Portsmouth, which is just about 40 minutes across, and and then Southampton is similar, but yeah, there was a great music venue called the Joiners Arms, which almost everyone's played. You know, like Suede played there back in the day, NoFX played there, Green Day played there, Coldplay played there. So small little 200 capacity place. I always describe it a little bit like a South Coast CBGBs, you know, where like you were lucky enough to go and see those bands when they were coming through. You could have seen them at the Joiners, but it's like a little institution there. So a great music venue, really famous and historic. And there was a great music scene there growing up. So I was kind of blessed with that, you know.
That's awesome. What got you into music?
I think I was part of the DIY punk scene over here. So I was putting on shows, but like getting into music in the first place, on a very base level, I think it was my parents divorced when I was about 13, and my dad left all these records in the house. And like that feeling when you first learn how to put on a record, and you have like a needle and flipping it over, and all that kind of that cool ceremony that comes along with doing that stuff. I kind of fell in love with the magic of that, and I started putting on records based on how the albums looked, you know, like the album art. So like for me, it was Hunky Dory, the David Bowie record, Dark Side of the Moon, like all that stuff. My dad had a Meatloaf, Bad Out of Hell, which would play a bigger role in my life growing up, which I didn't know at the time, and yeah, just all the greats we had. Like Roxy Music was his favorite band, so I was big into Roxy Music and T-Rex. A lot of the kind of the 70s glam stuff from over in the UK. That was really the scene that he was in growing up. So I discovered it there. It kind of became all my friends. We got into punk rock when we were kids, and I started putting on shows and ended up in a band, but don't know how sometimes.
Did you pick up any instrument at that point, or did you just like enjoy like putting on the show and the community of it all?
I think it was more like originally I played piano, but really badly, and I still play badly. I play better now than I did, but at the time it was more about just putting shows on, and like it was like one of those things with those sorts of scenes where like all your friends' bands would play, and you'd all just dance to your friends' bands, and like like it was a real community spirit there. And I was kind of involved in that, and I put on bands from France, and we had a band from Malaysia, Second Combat, like a straight edge band. So yeah, I was really involved in that little world when I was growing up. So I had no aspirations of playing at that early on.
Did you think you were going to be involved because you're putting on shows? Were you just like, I'm going to do this for as long as I can, and then I'll get a real job? Or were you just like, I want to be involved in music in any way I can?
Well, I always worked jobs back then. It was expensive. I'd lose money on shows all the time. It sucked. So like like the days where you guaranteed like a bunch of bands money, I'd have to go draw it out from the cash point and stuff like that at an ATM. So I had to go do that all the time. So I always worked jobs. I never thought it would become my full-time thing. I was living in punk houses and stuff like that, and so it was quite cheap to live. But I never thought it would become. All of this is still a bit of a surprise for me. All this time on, to be honest.
Yeah. And I've talked to a few UK bands recently, and it's like, the system is not supportive of creatives and people in the music industry, just like it's not here in stateside.
Yes, yeah, it's true.
Yeah. So what led you to be in a band then?
So there was, I think I like messed around when we were in school and stuff. Like we'd like go to like the music room and kind of fuck around, but we never really did anything. And then I was promoting, and I booked a band, and I got a call from their drummer the week before the show saying that their singer had dropped out, and would I understand? Because I knew all the words anyway, because we all just like sing along and stuff. And I said yeah, and then I did the gig, but then and then they asked to keep the singer and kept me in. But I don't think it was because I was very good. I just think it was because I was a little bit better than the other guy, And I was just shouting back then. I wasn't singing. I was just shouting and jumping around, and so yeah, that's kind of how it happened. And then I ended up being in that band. Like it took on a lot of different guises, but for about 7 years. So I was in that for a very long time. And we broke it up really when the other guys who were a little bit older than me, they were all like, well, let's just get some jobs now and stuff, but real jobs, not working at Domino's Pizza, all the shit that you do, So yeah, we broke it up then. And so yeah, it was 7 years of my life. And Ian from Creeper as well, he was the same way in the same band.
Oh, nice. How did Creeper form then?
So Creeper formed because we basically, that band broke up. I got a job at a call center, and I moved out of my dad's house because I'd moved back in. I was moving around a lot, and I lived there for 2 months while we went on tour. And then I came back and we broke the band up, and I was like, probably need to sort this out. So we went, I got a job at a call center. I don't know if you ever worked at a call center, Brian. Have you ever done that?
No.
It's a weird environment, those places. I was inbound, so I had to pick the phone up and say, your move, sales and lettings, Will speaking, how can I help you? And it was that over and over again. And I was like, I'm going to settle down and do this now. And within like a year, I hated it. Yeah. And just like, God, this is shit. Like real work, not selling things door to door or any of the crazy little jobs I did to support myself while I was in a band. Real like monotonous work like that. I just hated it. Yeah. And I said to Ian, he used to be in my old band, hey man, do you want to do something for the weekends? I don't want to tour anymore because touring is expensive and shit, and like you're away and very, always broke, and don't want to do any of that. But let's do something for the weekends. And maybe when Ricky has a band come through, like a US band come through at the Joiners, I mentioned to you earlier on, we can open up, And he was like, okay, cool. So we fucked around and wrote some songs, and just like just for a laugh, and we put them up for free on the internet, and after all those years of doing it, that was the release that caught attention of record companies. I had no idea. It was bizarre. We didn't know what we were doing, and at this time, you got to understand as well. The funny thing is, dude, we were like the kids, because we come from the punk scene. We would just get wasted every day and play, because that's what you did, you know. Like, we were from like a punk scene. So like when Creeper got signed, we were still that way. Like, we were still just get hammered and just play, and it took us a long time to kind of undo those bad habits and take it more seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. Where'd the name come from?
Creeper. So our last band, we didn't name it. Was someone else had named it before we were in it, and so we had to live with the name, and it was just rubbish. So Creeper. Me and Ian sat down, and I said, well, I'd love it to sound like kind of like a series of books, you know, like a Stephen King series or something, but like with a name, like, so you could have each record would be different, and it'll be a different story each time around, you know, like a book series almost. And Creeper sounded good because I thought it sounded like Tales from the Crypt or something, you know, like a series of films, or a series of short films, like a Twilight Zone or something, you know. And so we chose it because it sounded like an adventure. It sounded like a book you'd read and want to dive into.
What led you guys to Roadrunner Records?
They came to see us. They came, like, it's really funny, actually. Like, there was an A&R there called Ian Dickinson, and he came to our first show. I was at the Joiners, and I met him outside. He was wearing a Danzig hat, and I remember thinking, oh, he's cool. He's got a Danzig hat on. And yeah, he worked for Roadrunner, and we got offers from a few different people at the beginning, and we chose that label because of him. And also because, you know, Famous Monsters came out on there, the Misfits record, and Slipknot, obviously the first Slipknot record, lots of really great stuff came. Like, some of our favorite albums came out on Roadrunner, so it was a no-brainer. And we were like, this will probably they'll probably just do an EP with us, and then the band will break up anyway. So, like, whatever, you know, didn't really think about it, which is a bad move. But we didn't really think about it, and then, anyway, years later, Ian would leave Roadrunner and start managing bands, and eventually now he's our manager. He went to 5B and you know, manages Net Deep and loads of acts now, and Wargasm and Static Dress, and so yeah, it's funny, we've kept him on.
Nice. Nice. How would you explain? I mean, from your first release on Roadrunner, I mean, through the new record, there's been a steady evolution in sound, but like, those first two full lengths are really rooted in punk rock. What has led to that shift in sound? Just member changes, or maturity and you know, comfortability as a band? I think the member changes didn't really change anything, because it's me and Ian who write all the songs. He's been my friend since I was a teenager. So it's really just been, we had an ambition to never stay in one place and to keep moving. As you get older, you'll notice with bands, like, especially bands like who have a good thing going. You know, we never had it that, like we never been a mega successful act, but as some have. But when people get mega successful in one sound, you find as they get older, they just try to replicate the same sound over and over again, and their heart's in it a little less each time, because they're growing up, right? And you get into different shit. You don't like the same stuff you like when you were 12, you know, like, so. And not that it makes it any less mature what you like or anything, but you want to progress. And so for us, it was always seemed like a good idea to evolve and to take on. I like so much music. I was so lucky when I was growing up getting into all those acts that I wanted to mix it all together. And so yeah, like, I think it's us growing up as songwriters, becoming more brave. Punk rock was fun when we were younger because we couldn't play very well. And you could play 4 chords and you can kind of get away with it. And I love punk rock so much still. It's still such a big part of my life, and all my friends are on that scene. But I had aspirations of trying other things, and Creepers allowed that because, well, for the most part, like, if you're into the flamboyant theatrical stuff that we've been doing all this time, it kind of transcends like one genre, and it kind of becomes a few different things. So
So yeah, it's kind of a little bit of us becoming better musicians and being a bit more daring and being a bit more encouraged to try a different hat on, I suppose, and also the will to not just do the same thing over and over again, and at the risk of it becoming boring and kind of it's not very punk to do it if your heart's not in it,
Yeah.
So
yeah. You guys had the misfortune of releasing Sex, Death, and the Infinite Void July of 2020. Were you too far into the release cycle to push that record back, or what was the decision to release a record 2 months into a global pandemic?
Oh man, that was fucked up. It was strange because it was pushed back. It was pushed back a few months. We thought it was gonna. We were like, oh, this pandemic thing will just blow over, and it just totally didn't. We had to. There was no other option apart from put everything on pause, and it felt really counterintuitive. And because of the way the band is anyway, if we waited a couple of years, our influences and the way our mindset would have changed. We want to release a different record.
Yeah.
It's just a condition of kind of being in this band. But it was a nightmare. It was very difficult. We had some big challenges of it because how much promo can you do when you're not touring? It was a nightmare. And we'd already taken a year out before then to write and finish the record. So it kind of felt like it had to be done. But you know what it did do? It kind of allowed us to work out how to work remotely. I think lots of us had that experience, regardless of the profession. Like my partner, she had the same thing where she was like, "Oh, this turns out I can kind of do this stuff from home." So we ended up working out how to write songs across the internet and stuff like that. And it sucked, but at the same time, we just try to make the best of it.
Yeah. You put out the EP a year later. Was that just all right, we have these extra songs and kind of to re-get your band out there? Or
well, we were coming out of the pandemic. That was just before we properly came out of it, and we had a new drummer, and we had these leftover songs, and the record had felt kind of stale at that point. We'd had it out for a minute, and so we kind of wanted to ingest some more life into it, and to inject some more life into it, and make it a bit of a more to make it last a little longer, because we hadn't had time to do any of it. So it gave us a chance while we started touring again. We did Download Festival that year, and we headlined one of the stages there. And we wanted to have something fresh and new to come out and kind of talk about and have people interact with. So it was really something we'd never do normally. And if it wasn't a pandemic, we just put together loads of B-sides from the record and tied them up and made them some of the ones we really liked that didn't make the cut. And that's what that record kind of is comprised of. It's kind of the offcuts from Sex, Death.
Yeah. Was your contract then with Roadrunner done?
That release was still on Roadrunner, and then for this new one, that's when we've moved across to Spinefarm.
Okay. What led you guys to Spinefarm?
Lots was changing at Roadrunner, and in the UK at least, lots of people had kind of. I mentioned my manager had left, and he used to work there. Our press agent had left from there as well, and we were looking for a new label. So I met up with Dante, who I don't know if you have met or not, but he is someone from the UK leg of Spinefarm over here, and he met up with me. And we went to dinner, and he brought me a copy of Bad for Good, the Jim Steinman album on vinyl as a gift. And much in the same way, when I've met Ian Dickinson and he was wearing the Danzig hat, I just thought it was instantly one cool point to me. I was like, oh God, I love that album. And he really understood the band. And even though we went to see other people, I kind of knew we were going to go with him. He understood. He spoke about old school rock and roll and a lot of bands from the past. He'd worked on Vision Thing, the Sister Mercy record, when that came out, and a lot of my favorite albums. So he was a really interesting guy and really understood the spirit of what we were trying to achieve, I think.
The new album is called Sanguivore. Am I pronouncing that right? I looked that up earlier.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. Sanguivore, yeah.
Yeah, where'd that title come from?
We were making the record. It was supposed to be called, originally it was going to be called European Vampires, A True Story, but the name kind of sucked. And also, I thought it was great at the time because I was watching that the Coen Brothers film Fargo, and I was like, oh my god, A True Story, that's a great idea. And then we left the European Union over here, which I really hated, and I thought so. We weren't from Europe anyway, I wanted to make something new, and so that the Sanguivore is Italian for a blood-sucking animal, and I felt like it summed up what the record was about, and the characters were, what the character arc kind of was, and it involved the listener having to do what you did, to look it up, and I like the idea, like I was. I was talking to you earlier on about how that amazing ceremony of flipping an album over and learning how a record player works and all that stuff, and how you had to physically interact with music back then. Now, like, the world's a very different place now, for better or for worse, I don't know. But like the idea of you interacting with music physically is long gone. You press play on something, or you don't even press play these days. You can say it out loud, but and there's nothing wrong with that. But like, I thought the idea of a record that had quite an old school sensibility to it. And having a title that forced the listener to interact with it even before you'd listen to it. Like, it had a question mark over it that you had to kind of, if you really wanted to dive into, you had to look up. You had to find something out, unless you studied Unity or Italian. But like, it was a romantic feeling and something that like felt from a bygone time. And it also sounded like an adventure. And, you know, as I was saying about the band name, like having things sound like... having the title sound like a something you might put on a film or something, like a kingdom of its own, sounded like a really appealing quality to me. Yeah.
You talked about picking records for their album artwork when you were younger. This album has incredible artwork. Who did the cover for you guys?
Thank you very much. I can't take credit for the art, but like it was by this guy called Will Gould, and that's their artist name, and we loved it because of that reason. And it's cool that you noticed that, actually, because that's exactly the intent it was made under, like to try and make a classic looking album cover on for a record that was lifting from a lot of very classic stuff. And like I was thinking about like some of my favorite record sleeves, like the Fleetwood Mac cover for Rumors and stuff like that, like these iconic ones from my dad's whole collection. And just like, you need something that seems familiar, seems familiar, but that's not too much of a rip of something else. It's just the same thing. So I sent a very elaborate treatment to them, and they came back with something that I felt like really, it looks like the record sounds to me. So, and that's always the way you want, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. We talked a little bit at the beginning about the record, but talk to me about the writing process and coming up with this concept and the way the album flows and the different like genres you captured, because like the opening track is kind of like My Chemical Romance, Black Parade, and like rock opera.
Yeah, it's kind of influenced by like the first song was kind of influenced by like a big Jim Steinman epic, like a Bat of Hell, or like or like something from Bad for Good. It's supposed to be like there's got a real prog section in the middle, and so these were like a lot of the we dedicate the record to Jim Steinman, based upon all the reference points that kind of littered amongst it are all kind of things that he worked on. So when it sounds a bit Sisters of Mercy-ish, it's never like First and Last and Always Sisters of Mercy. It's kind of more like Bloodland era, like big bombastic, like This Corrosion and Dominion and stuff. And when it sounds like a big power ballad, it sounds like Bonnie Tyler, like it's that's one of the things that links it together. But when we wrote it, it was very much the way we wrote our early records too. It was very similar to that, where we sat down in the room. I'm in my apartment right now, but it's like I live in an apartment in a converted church here, which is so sick. But it's really cool for the album to be. We could wrote a load of it here, and Tom Dalgetty, who produced it, also lives in a converted church. So it was made in two. We wrote the whole thing in like two very old churches, 18th century things in England, and then we recorded it in Rockfield Studios, where they did Bohemian Rhapsody and the Damned did the Black Album, and Iggy Pop recorded there, Simple Minds, and all this amazing stuff. So it's kind of steeped, like it was written in kind of in buildings that kind of steeped in history, and then recorded in like a building known for rock and roll history. So really lucky and really privileged to get to do that, you know. And I think it kind of, I don't know, maybe it's just me, like I feel like it makes the record, it makes it kind of feel better, you know. It kind of feels like I can tell when I listen to it, I'm like, oh yeah, of course it was recorded in loads of churches and played in Rockfield, yeah. You know, like this as a silly, overblown record with like riffing on all these 80s goth kind of thing, these conventions, you know.
Yeah. What's your approach for writing lyrics, especially on this record? Like, did you come in like with a storyline you wanted to approach, or like how yeah.
Yeah, definitely. All of the records are big concept records. It's just no different. So I had the story for this one like years ago. We always knew we were going to do a third record that was going to be darker, and I wanted it to be a concept record about vampires. So I had the story all locked in, and I think the first meeting we had with our producer was me telling him the long story about these characters, Spook and Mercy, and their relationship, and how the story went. So I kind of wrote to that. It was a lot of me kind of. We would often I'd go and lay down a scratch vocal and then take it away and write a billion different verses and things, you know. Just trying to make the story kind of as cohesive as possible without kind of ruining the flow of the song, which is a weird balance to strike up sometimes, man. It's weird.
Yeah. You and I we're obviously music guys here having this chat, and where people are going to listen to whole records and like take the concept in. But when you're approaching a record like this, where you're writing a story, knowing that like this album could get playlisted or people are just going to pick tracks here or there, does it change the way you approach, or you just like, you have to write for you and what makes you happy first and foremost?
You know, it was weird on the first one. We all of the videos were like kind of sequential, so they all kind of led into one another. You know, there was like, and one of the main problems, the main takeaways was for those who didn't know Creeper. If you listen to one of the songs that was in the middle of the campaign, you wouldn't understand anything that was going on in the music video. It was crazy. It's been a bit of a trial and error with that. I don't ever want it to be a thing with Creeper where it's like a gatekeep kept thing where like you have to know the lore to enjoy it. I think that's really shitty, and I don't like that when it's other bands. But at the same time, it wouldn't be Creeper without the lore. It's like the whole bit. You know, that's our thing. So it's an elaborate lore around each one of the records. I never ever think about the radio ever. And every time someone tells me to, I just don't listen. I just think it's whack. I think that I don't think it's very punk, and I know our band's not necessarily a punk band anymore, but we're from that world, and I've always just thought all the great artists are just, you know, they always say when David Bowie made his worst records is when he started considering the radio all the time, and all the good ones were ones that came out of nowhere. I'm not sure whether I always agree, because I love some of those commercial ones he made it too. But I like Tonight, even though no one else does. I think for me it just doesn't make any sense. And there have been times where people have tried to push us that way, and we've really kicked back and done the absolute opposite. I don't know. It's difficult for me. I think a band like Creeper's not going to be one of those big, there's not going to be a band over here, for example, that's going to be a Radio 1 band where we're not Machine Gun Kelly, you know, like we're aware of what we are, you know, and I'm not going to try to be, because that's what's popular, you know, like we're a rock and roll band, you know, so we just kind of do what we want.
yeah, it'll find its audience in time. Right?
Yeah, we hope so. You never know.
Album is out October 13th. What's the rest of the year look like?
I'm busy. I'm super fucking busy at the moment. I'm doing this all day, every day at the moment. Yeah. But we're going on tour in November in the UK. We've got, actually, I don't know if this has been announced yet, but it probably will be by the time this comes out. We've got Safe Face from New Jersey out with us. We have the Nightmares out from Wales. So it's going to be a really big tour for us over here. The plans are to come over to the US next year. We haven't been back since 2018, or we were there with NetDeed. So yeah, we're doing a lot going into this next month. We're doing lots of events in the UK. That's like months of it now. Just out and about, doing gigs and playing songs. So thanks very much for having me, Brian. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Yeah. Like I said, record phenomenal. I was like, one of those bands where sometimes you get a press release and you're like, I don't know if this is for me. And I heard the single and I was like, okay, that's cool. Yeah. And I listened to the whole record and I'm like, oh, this is some wild shit. And I love it. Like, and the artwork is phenomenal. It's like, yeah.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's definitely a fucking strange ride. But I guess you kind of need those bands that are doing weird things sometimes, you know.
Baby, so tonight, be my teenage sacrifice. You made up forever. If love come like at night, baby, so tonight, be my teenage sacrifice. When you wash the blood from your hands, can you live without your love? Can you live without your
Thanks for listening to As the Story Grows. Our intro music was written and composed by Jeremy Hunt. The As the Story Grows theme is by Bob Nana. If you like what you hear, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and give us a rating and review. If you'd like to support the show financially, you can join us at patreon.com/asthestorygrows. Be a part of our community and join the ongoing conversation over on Discord. If you enjoy this episode, share it on social media with your friends. Much appreciated, and thanks for listening.
I never felt so young and alive as when I'm diving into a tune. And now I'm learning as I listen along, and the wheels are turning, and I started a song. One good word and I'm gone. Oh, as the story grows, the more I wanna know, the more I wanna show you. As the story grows, as the story grows. You can create something lasting and great, something passionate and real. And I'll bring in my own good feelings, I'll sing it with meaning. Let's just attack it and never look back. It's wild and fantastic.